Salutations everybody, it is Maddie here today. As promised in yesterday's video, with news being a little light right now, I want to get into some discussions. One that's been hanging over all of us since the delay of Starfield and Redfall is, what is Xbox's 2023 going to well and truly look like? With 2022 seemingly being empty, I think they'll have some answers that people will be pleased with, but it will never fill the gap of the Starfields, of the Redfalls, right? Those big first-party exclusives. And so I wanted to give us some time to heal from our wound, heal from the trauma caused by Bethesda Game Studios, and now with a little recovery, we can have an honest conversation about the future of Xbox. Now, I'm completely self-aware. I know how this looks. I feel a little foolish kind of talking about it because it's like we were all excited for this year, and now we got to go, oh, well, 2023 is going to be exciting, and everyone's sort of caught up with the mantra of Xbox that I've been complaining about for a while, which is everything's being punted into the next year. We'll see you next year. It'll start next year. So I get it. I understand if there's some frustrations with this conversation, but I do want to take a look at a 2023 lineup that can be absolutely stacked. But when you look at a lot of old rumors and leaks, 2023 will present its own set of issues for Xbox. However, this time it should be a good set of issues that no matter the delays, no matter what happens, we should have first-party games in 2023. God willing. Anyway, ladies and gentlemen, welcome one, welcome all. Thank you so much for lending me some of your time in today's video. I do appreciate that. And if you're new here, you're interested in more Xbox conversations and general gaming conversations as well, then consider subscribing. With that, let's talk about Xbox's 2023. So as I said, Starfield, Redfall, delayed into 2023. What do we have to look forward to in 2023 beyond that? Right? Are these the only games that are going to be coming out in 2023? Au contraire, if we look at some old rumors and some old leaks, there's actually going to be a really interesting situation presented to Xbox in the coming year. So first and foremost, I want to talk about Avowed. To me, Avowed is the game that not enough people are talking about. And I'm hoping when they do, I imagine, re-reveal this at the Xbox Bethesda Game Showcase for 2022, that it does steal some of the conversation. Because I feel like Obsidian is constantly being slept on. They're one of the, if not the best RPG developer in the industry. I loved The Outer Worlds. I thought it was such a great step forward for that company. And now Avowed's coming out, and it's been reported to be pretty much Outer Worlds meets Skyrim, which is just music to mine and many others' ears. I cannot wait to see Obsidian pound out a AAA project with all that Microsoft money. However, the rumor was that it was coming out in 2023. Where it gets really interesting is my good friend Jez Corden, who I spoke about this today, and it's why I'm sitting down and making this video. I talked to him about his report for Avowed, where he put out a bunch of details about this, where he saw the game in pre-production moving towards a playable alpha state, and that a lot of the mechanics and core gameplay pillars were already implemented for the title, and that they were moving forward with just building the game. From that point forward, he then spoke on the Xbox 2 podcast, saying that Avowed could really be in a Q1, Q2 2023 release window because it was looking really sharp. So I talked to him and I went, yo, Jez, like, you still feeling this a little bit? And this is where the conversation truly begins, because we were both saying, wow, they really have now a very fascinating 2023, because if this game was ready for that window, because all we've heard are positive things about the development of Avowed. Obviously, game development's tough. Things can change even at the last minute, so let's not run all this to the bank because a lot of this is speculation and theorizing. But if they were still set for an early 2023 release, now you're looking at in the first half, Avowed, Starfield, Redfall. And it's interesting because one thing that a lot of us personally expected was you want that separation between Avowed and Starfield. You can't have these two, in my head at least. Maybe they do it, but I just feel like you can't have these two released next to each other. Like, these are two games that will dominate the conversation. And I don't want to sleep on Redfall too much. We don't know enough about it to really determine whether or not this will be a big game, but I feel like Redfall has to go ahead of everything else. So you'd imagine it'd be Redfall, then Starfield, and then Avowed. If it's ready, do you hold on to it for longer to keep the quarterly rollout? Do you expand the vision of the game now because you have the time? 2023 is not just a prove it moment for Xbox, but it's a real test of their publishing capability on when you have a lot of stacked releases, how you organize them and what you add content to. Because we're not looking at, I believe, a situation where it'll be like fall 2021 where they had a game every single month for like 4 months. That was really cool, but that's because everything was getting ready at a similar time frame. Now you're looking at games that are in a similar window, but they can be spaced out. How much do you cram into the first half? Because that would also be an interesting situation. Let's be real with ourselves. The first half of every year has not existed for Xbox. I wouldn't complain if in the first half we got Redfall, Starfield, and Avowed. I just feel like Xbox wants to spread that wealth, right? Because they've been working on all these studios outside of the Bethesda ones, but they've been working on teams like Avowed, teams like Ninja Theory, which we'll talk about in a little bit, for 5 years at that point. You want to make sure that everyone gets their moment. No one should be overshadowed here. And obviously, this continues to bump back other games that could be ready. This is where it gets even more interesting. It was then stated in a separate rumor by Jez, and again, we talked about this, that Contraband was originally slated for 2022, but was then pushed back to 2023. The quote from the article says, this is according to Randall Thor and Windows Central Gaming's Jez Corden on the Xbox 2 podcast. Apparently, the co-op title was slated to release this year, according to them, but has since faced a delay to 2023. No further details were provided, but we'll likely hear more official news in the coming months. Now, this was ahead of everything else that got delayed, which does bring a little perspective on how much this Redfall and Starfield delay must really sting Xbox, because they're probably like, oh, yeah, we'll delay Contraband, no big deal. We got those two. We're fine. And then you got to delay those as well. You're like, oh, geez, well, now we're really screwed. And it is, when you look at the bigger picture, I'm not trying to make excuses. I think there is some mismanagement here. It is just a really unfortunate situation for Xbox. I look at something like Stalker 2, a prominent third-party timed exclusive, and you got the war in Ukraine. You're like, well, that's horrible, and I know there's much bigger problems in video games, of course. Don't get me wrong there, but that's one of those situations where I can't really blame Xbox for that. It's just the world being a terrible place, quite honestly. So then you look at 2023, now you throw Contraband in there, and if Contraband was kind of slated like, okay, we're feeling like we could have this done by 2022, does this now become a first half of 2023 game as well? Now you're looking at 4 games, potentially, and I don't want to run a mile with all the rumors and speculation, but I think it's a conversation worth entertaining. Now you're looking at a first half of 2023 with 4 full-on AAA games possibly ready to go. And it's not impossible to imagine Starfield gets punted even further back. This is the one development in my head that I really know a lot of people are going to struggle to think about, but we have to entertain. So Jason Schreier said at the timing of the delay of Starfield that when they put a date on it last year, that there was a fear that this would be the next Cyberpunk. They're giving the game another about half a year of development time. I would imagine this is going to come out ahead of the summer. And if it is the next Cyberpunk needed another year. It is possible that if the game was in that shoddy of a state, as much as I love BGS, look, I really trust them, but I do remember Fallout 76 quite well, and I know that Xbox can't have that happen. And if it's not ready, let's say Avowed is and Redfall is, you could see another delay for Starfield, right? I'm not saying I've heard that, of course, but I'm just saying this could be something that does happen. And it makes 2023 even more interesting where some of this content can scatter a little bit more. I mean, there's a reason why they didn't date either of the delays for Redfall or Starfield. Like when Elden Ring was delayed by a single month, that was it. You got a new date right away. It's very interesting when a game gets delayed into an unknown area because they don't know when they'll be done. So more problems could arise for Starfield and hell, even Redfall. But that game was slated to release ahead of Starfield, so you'd imagine it's a little bit further along. Now here's where it gets a little bit more interesting. So I remember after the E3 2021 showcase for Xbox and Bethesda, a lot of people were really happy, but there was also a lot of questions. Where are some games? And Jeff Grubb has always had his finger on the pulse when it comes to what Xbox's game studios are up to. And he explains in his article, when Microsoft is going to call in the cavalry, it's been promising fans before this generation. Well, the short answer is simple, 2023. Right now, the following games are all expected to launch in 2023. Avowed, Fable, Perfect Dark, Everwild, Hellblade 2, Contraband, In Exile's next game, Compulsion's next game, Coalition's next non-Gears project. This was pre-delay, so you also got to throw in the mixture of games like Starfield, Redfall. See how it's all coming into frame? Now we're looking at what I talked about in the initial reaction to the delay, a shotgun blast of 5 years of buildup. And look, while it stings here and now, I can't help but be excited about that. As an Xbox player, I also look at it and go, well, I know we're going to get first-party games next year. That's pretty much a guarantee unless something catastrophic happens to all of these studios and they just can't get their games out and everyone needs a delay. But what's good is now we can take an honest look at all of these projects and afford them the delays if they need them, and it won't hurt as bad as it's going to this year, where that kind of phantom pain of the delays of Starfield and Redfall, I think, will even linger this fall. And if particular games miss or aren't as exciting for Xbox, I do absolutely anticipate a lot more harsh criticism coming their way, because people are going to feel burned and angry even to that point in time. Right now, taking a look at 2023, you look at that whole lineup, and I can't help but feel pretty solid about things, especially if some things are expected to come soon. Then I think of games like Contraband and Avowed are going to actually get gameplay if they were expected earlier rather than later. I was willing in my head to punt Avowed to maybe the fall, and maybe that becomes an option if Starfield's ready quicker. That's the thing, is right now Xbox has a lot of cards in their hands, and it's a game of all this opportunity, but they have to be really smart with how they play it out. And I know a lot of people aren't crazy about this, but I'm really big on the idea: spread the wealth. Quarterly releases. This shotgun blast, I think, is ill-advised because, again, we've been building up to this point, and once all those first-party studios go, we begin the cycle anew. And, of course, that's where the importance of Day One Game Pass, third-party exclusives, more first parties being bought and brought into the family, like we did with Bethesda, where originally they were the saviors of 2022 because we were looking at an empty year and we went, whew, thank God they got Bethesda, because now we got Starfield and Redfall. Oh, boy, wait a second. So I think that it's wise that they try to spread this out as much as possible. We know what they're trying to go for with Xbox. We've heard the rumors of Xbox everywhere. And so I do think that if you want to make sure people are signing up for the program, these games are going to be available day one in Game Pass, quarterly rollouts, make them these big deals, and grow Game Pass through it. And everyone can play through Xbox everywhere, which who knows what platforms it ends up on in 2023. The point being, though, is yes, we're in dire times right now, but I well and truly believe that 2023 for Xbox could be absolutely legendary because of everything that's built up. It's hard for a lot of the mistakes of their past to repeat again simply because they don't have an option. Now the only option can become, is this game good or is it bad? And we will see when that time comes. Last year, they were the publisher of the year. Good for them. So for me, I'm a believer that they know how to make quality games. They know how to publish quality games. But they are learning a lot of tough lessons here. But a lot of those lessons will be applied in 2023. And again, some of the mistakes we're seeing here, like a completely empty first-party lineup in 2022, simply can't happen in 2023. Not because, well, it can happen, but because there just are so many games that are in the pipeline that they have to be ready to go eventually. And the thing that I've learned about with game development is once a game's ready, a lot of teams don't like to just sit on the game. Like, once it's ready, you got to let it go. Otherwise, you'll keep tinkering. You'll find new things to work on. Look, it's something that a lot of people who have not worked in games don't know about, but it's definitely something that happens. Like the little minute adjustments, the perfectionism kicks in. You just eventually need to ship it, see what people think, and then respond to that feedback, and you'll see how well you did. So that's the other thing. You don't want these teams to be sitting on projects for 5-6 months if they're ready to go. Again, tough balancing act for Xbox, but keen to see how they handle it all. Anyway, just some thoughts on the possibly legendary 2023, and I'd love to hear some of your thoughts on all of this in the comments down below. I'm sorry, again, if this conversation left you a little bitter. I get it. But with that, I'm looking forward to reading your thoughts nonetheless. Be sure to follow me on Twitter, follow me on Instagram. Those links are in the description down below. And a big thank you to all the patrons, all the members who continue to support the hell out of the content here. Stay sexy, stay active. I love you all. Peace.